I think probably the best thing that any of us can do for other people's lives is to model what it is, that we would like other people to be able to achieve for themselves, to be a human being who is walking the talk. I call it living the virtues, and I'll talk about that again tomorrow in the seminar, and I talk about that quite a bit in the film. And looking at people who didn't have as many things as so many of us, the rest of us have, and the emphasis was on volunteering and serving and reaching out and getting your thoughts and your attention off of what's in it for me and how much can I get and who can I defeat and how much better am I than everybody else and how much stuff have I accumulated and how many awards do I talk about and how much do I always speak about myself and so on. And shifting, making that shift. And the shift is away from being so self-centered and so ego-driven into reaching out, asking the question, how may I serve? Is there anything that I can do for somebody else? Becoming volunteers. Because there's nothing in this world that makes a person feel better and feel more God-realized and more on purpose when you're off of what's in it for me and on to how may I serve. And I think the interesting thing about that, and that's one of the reasons that I did the film, is that when you put your attention off of, and you take the attention off of yourself and you put it on how may I serve, it's almost as if you align with something in the universe that is doing the very same thing. And instead of you saying, when you say to the universe, give me, give me, give me, or when you say to God, give me, give me, give me, I need more, it's almost as if you align with that kind of an energy, and the universe responds back to you with more of, you give me, give me, give me, give me, and you always feel under pressure. You always feel like you're never arriving. But when you say to the universe, when you say to God, when you say to everything and everyone that's out there, how may I serve? It's almost as if the universe turns around and responds back with, how may I serve you? How may I serve you? And all the things that you used to chase after and try to get a hold of and worry about whether you're going to have enough of them and so on, all of those things seem to just dissolve, and the universe begins to say, how may I serve you? And the more you serve others, the more it serves you, and the more that arrives in your life. You don't have to chase after it anymore. It's sort of chasing after you. When I do reach out to other people, I am taking care of myself. That's what I'm doing. That's the thing, because what does it do? What does it do when you reach out and serve another human being in any way? All it does is it makes you feel good. And one of my teachers, Swami Muktananda in India, had an ashram, and he would ask people as they walked into the ashram, do you know the difference between good and God? And he would stop and they'd say, what? And he'd say, and he'd just make a finger with, he'd make a circle with his finger and his thumb, which is zero. It's like, meaning there's one little zero, one little O. And that the answer is, there is no difference between good and God. That when you are doing something good, I mean, the opening lines of the Old Testament say, in the beginning God created heaven and earth, and all that God created, I think it's line 31, and all that God created was good, which means that God and good are one. So that feeling good and doing good and reaching out in that sense is really feeling God. And when you feel God within you, when you feel internally, when you feel the presence of a divine assistance or guidance, you're totally, completely taking care of yourself. You're making yourself feel good by reaching out and extending it to others. So that would be my answer to it at all. But the other thing I would always say is, even if people do say that back to you, I always say don't complain and don't explain. You don't have to explain. You know what you're doing. And the more of that you do, the more that seems to come into your life. That's just always worked for me. I don't know if it's true for everyone. And they say of the highest spiritual people, like Jesus, for example, that when Jesus would go into a village, just his presence in the village, because of the energy at which he lived, would be enough to elevate the energy of everyone in the community, or in wherever he would be. You've heard people say, well, don't be a Pollyanna, right? You've heard this over and over. What is a Pollyanna? Well, Pollyanna was a little girl who lived in a town, and everybody was gloom and everybody was down, and she comes to town, and as a result of her enthusiasm and her excitement, you remember this? Everybody starts feeling better, and all, because when you've got to, what you have to do when you're around that low negative energy, instead of saying they'll bring me down, is reinforce the importance of not joining that kind of energy and presenting that. And then by staying in that place, not explaining yourself, not complaining, not finding fault with it, but just generating and sending out more and more of the kind of energy you're speaking about, you'll suddenly see people coming up. And you know who you'll notice it first? You'll notice it with little children, and you'll notice it even with animals.
Okay.
Because Patanjali put it this way. He had this wonderful line. He said, when you are steadfast in your abstention of thoughts of harm, that's judgment, directed towards yourself and others, that all living creatures will cease to feel fear in your presence. You just have to stay steadfast and just watch. And so you get the negativity, and instead of joining it and going down, you hang on to that and you watch. You'll start bringing those people up, and you'll never complain and you'll never explain.